valuable company in the world right now is NVIDIA.
China gonna have to bow down, man. China is going to have to bow
down. Good evening, and welcome to the Nightly Recap powered by Gnn News Network.
All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show. There's a little bit of a delay here. I'm not sure why. But if it's a little slow, it's a little slow. Welcome to the Nightly Recap powered by Gnn News Network. All politics is local, which means it's personal. When you say local, that means personal, right? I mean, it is true that politics is local. I think some of you know I've watched the Rob Nelson live show. I've watched the Ken Burns American Revolution documentary. 6 parts, 2 hours each, 12 hours. It's a 12-hour commitment. You're gonna need some caffeine to stay awake, because it's, like I've said, Ken Burns' style is so slow and so dry. The narration, it's just dry. Whether they're reading letters from people in 1770 or whether they're narrating what happened, the only vibrancy is the historians who come on, and I'd like more of them. I mean, you got to tell stories in a way but that's Ken Burns' style. But I feel like storytelling should be like exciting. You don't have to make the revolution boring, because it was literally you can't make up a movie about the American Revolution. Let's just be honest. Like if you really look at the history of the American Revolution, and you were to then look at movies where like, and you'd be like, oh, well, only in the movies. For example, what I mean by that is you can't make up a less likely scenario for these 13 colonies far away from the biggest empire in the world, the biggest navy in the world. It's got its big frigates, its giant ships. I mean, people realize these boats were big, and back then they come in and they launch their cannon, they weren't just shooting cannonballs. I mean, they had explosives, shoot 20 of them and start everything's blowing up. I mean, it was the equivalent of being attacked by fighter jets today. We're used to fighter jets now. Fighter jets, those were like the Navy destroyers coming, going boom, 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 boom. They wreaked hell and havoc, and people shooting back with guns. Not a more likely scenario for a ragtag group of people to pull together and beat down the biggest empire in the world. You literally can't make it up. I'm not kidding. Like if you take nothing away from tonight's recap other than that, and there's even a point where the American troops are literally so the Patriots are just so beaten down. They're broke. Well, first they didn't get, it's a separate story. They didn't get paid. They're like, their shoes, their clothes are tattered, they're frozen, they're hungry, they're freezing, everything's a mess. Someone would die, they'd take the clothes, what's left of them, off to give to somebody else. Their morale is low. They're in Valley Forge. They're not disciplined. They're not a disciplined, like the British Army was disciplined, trained. Actually, a guy comes in, this I don't know where he's from, Prussia or something like that. Some long, he's like a 7-name title. And General Washington empowers him to like get the troops in shape. And he literally teaches them like how to step in order, how to line up, how to use bayonets. They didn't really know how to use the bayonets. The British would be stabbing them all the time with the bayonets, the knives on the end of their muskets. It's a fascinating story. If you were to make a movie where there's like a ragtag group of people and someone comes in and whips them into shape, we're going to teach you how to fight. And, cut to, they've trained, you see the sequence of them training and learning, and boom. And then they go out and they win against the big guy. You're like, well, only in the movies. No, or in the American Revolution, the ragtag group of soldiers who were like struggling and straggling, taught them we're going to lose war if we don't get a little discipline here. Taught the troops how to be disciplined, how to have morale, how to fight better. They went and they took down the British, in the Battle of Yorktown, and force the British Army to surrender. It's a remarkable story of perseverance. It's the American spirit. of never quitting. George Washington was not a great tactical general, but he understood. He understood how to lead, how to motivate. He understood how to stay alive. He understood his mission. Like I've said before, just don't lose. Just wear them out. Don't lose. Don't lose the battle. Figure out how to fight another day. What I will say on the sad side is he almost had a rebellion of his troops near the end of the war because, and they needed again, these troops were enlisted basically, and when their enlistment ran out, they could go home. They weren't getting paid. The back pay was horrible, and his top officers were going to have a mutiny. They were going to be like, we're done, we're out of here. And Washington couldn't order them to stay. We could, but he's like, couldn't be like, fuck you all, you leave, I'm going to have you all hung. It's like, no, like he had to convince them not to do it. And this isn't like the rank and file. This is his officers. And they're pissed. They're like, nobody's getting paid. We're not even winning yet in our eyes. And Washington goes in and tries to convince them to stick around a little longer. And none of them are like, nope, no, thank you. And he then does this really powerful thing, such an act of leadership. He says, he takes out his glasses because he says, I need these to read. It's a total moment of theater. Apparently he takes the glasses out and he says to the officers, my body in service to you, not as your commander, in service to my officers. My body has taken a toll and grown older and weary. And unfortunately, so is my eyesight. I'm not doing it justice. The point is, he basically says, in fighting this war, in service to trying to support you guys and fight for you, and my body's taking a toll, and so is my eyesight. And he's going to read the thing, and people say he didn't need to read. At that point, it was like he had me at hello and Jerry Maguire. It's like they're like, we're in, and they were in, and it was critical. He lost his officers, but they were ready to mutiny because they weren't getting paid. It's an old story in America, us not taking care of our veterans. And I know it's a little sidebar to all this, but even in the beginning, we didn't take care of them. They weren't getting paid. And Washington, and he got a quartermaster in to help organize that was the guy I'm saying, to help organize the troops and discipline them and figure out how to get resources in and food in. But they didn't. And at the end of the war, they still weren't paid. They were months behind in their payments to the troops. And they gave them these IOUs. The Continental Congress gave them IOUs. And some people apparently sold their IOUs just for a set of clothing, one set of clothing that they could wear to go home in, because their uniforms were so tattered and beat up. And for months, troops weren't paid. And Washington tried really hard to get his troops paid. And it's like these people fought. They are the reason we have a free country. They fought for our country. They liberated us. They gave their life, their lives, their time, their bodies, their souls. They sacrificed, and we're not paying them. And that's still true today. We still are constantly going, why are our veterans homeless? I don't care. You say, well, people are homeless for all kinds of reasons. If you were a veteran, if you served in the U.S. military, for this country, you deserve to have a place to sleep. I don't care what went on inside your head. I don't care what choices you might have made differently. You deserve it. We owe it to you. There should not be a single home, should not be a hungry vet in America. That should be our commitment. You went and served on the front lines. Maybe you were in combat, maybe you weren't, but you served to protect this country. You deserve to have a place to sleep and a hot meal, period, end of story, and good health care. Yes, we all deserve it, but we don't even give it to the vets still. It's still a struggle. Pathetic. I'm going to end on the American Revolution. I'm going to take a deviation back to where I started. All politics is local. And the American Revolution part was that too. It was local. It was local politics. It was what mattered to the colonists, The colonists, as I've said before, the Patriots didn't wake up one day and decide they wanted to start a revolution and be free of Britain and start a democracy. They got tired of Britain putting its foot on them and feeling like they were not getting their interests and needs cared for by the monarchy and of which they were a part of. They were like, just give us a better deal here. Don't tax us unfairly. Don't punish us unfairly. Let us thrive. We will be happy subjects of the British Empire. That's all Britain had to do. When Britain didn't, they pushed back. And they still didn't want to be independent. They just want to push back to force Britain to do it. When Britain still didn't do it, they're like, fine, we'll go next step. Eventually, it turned into a war, which even at the beginning, I think the Americans probably would have settled. Half the colony was, colonists were loyalists. And even through the war, like a significant number of people. And finally, they were pushed to it. As I've said before, they didn't set out to make a democracy. A democracy found them in the process, and something beautiful emerged. But it was politics are low. I say that because I'm watching what's happening. Haley Berry, the actress, was at a Deal Book Summit on Wednesday, and was talking about how women are devalued. And she's a lib. I don't say that in a bad way. I'm saying she's liberal. And she was talking about how women are devalued, particularly after they reach a certain age. And the audience apparently kind of did the gasping, how people go, when she basically said, and I love this, she said, at this stage in my life, I have 0 fucks left to give. Back in my great state of California, my very own governor, Gavin Newsom, has vetoed our menopause bill, not 1, but 2 years in a row. That's okay, because he's not going to be governor forever. And the way he has overlooked women, half the population, the way he has overlooked women, half the population, all politics is local, by devaluing us, he probably should not be our next president either. Just saying. People are like, whoa. But it's true. I mean, you're going to see more and more of this, again, more and more women with power are reaching a menopausal stage in their lives, and they want healthcare plans to take care of that, for menopause-related treatments. It's a legit thing. It's been overlooked for a long, long time. And even the idea of training healthcare providers on it, and Newsom keeps vetoing it. Why does he keep vetoing it? Why? Haley Berry's probably right. It's overlooking us. Women were overlooked in the American. They were overlooked subsequently. There's a great picture of a bunch in front of the White House in the 20s saying, why do you keep, Mr. President, why do you keep overlooking us? When will you stop overlooking us? And Haley Berry's near, she was a sort of a sex symbol, hot, whatever. She's like, I'm past my prime, and I hate that, but but she's got a lot of life left, and it shouldn't be overlooked. It's not overlooked with men. So I'm saying it's and she's right. The pressure to stay, she says, women are pressured to stay 35 forever, and men aren't. And it's true. It's a double standard. And so you got this kind of gold standard people are trying to reach. When I say all politics is local, I'm just saying that as an interesting way to point back to the fact that everybody's self-interest matters. That's why, Mondami's winning in New York, because people want affordability, and they want housing, and they want to be able to pay and live in New York. It's local more than it's ideological. Republicans and Democrats need to recognize that, and they don't for the most part. It's what is your actual local need? What's your personal need? What's your pain point? It's how everything sells in life, right? What's your pain point? All right. I'm going to have a couple fun stories before I go here. This one kills me. I have to open these up. So there's an influencer named Pei Chung. She's the Dine and Dash influencer. I don't know if you remember her. She was finally evicted from her luxury apartment by Eliot Spitzer. Remember him? Eliot Spitzer, and he had he was attorney general in New York, and then he had or lieutenant governor, and they had and it was attorney general. I don't remember. And they had the whole scandal, the whole sex scandal with the prostitutes and all that. And if you remember, still a landlord. So she, they threw her out of her apartment. She owed $8,000, but had $50,000 in unpaid rent because she wouldn't leave after they terminated her lease. So it's basically $60,000 of not paying rent. But she would go with Prada bags and all that stuff. But she was faced for the dashing, and I think she thought it would work. I mean, because I looked up how many times she got arrested, with her Louis Vuitton bags and stuff. And she put it on social media, okay, 10 times arrested for dining and dashing. So she kind of made a thing out of it. Just interesting. She'd go in and like designer labels, dress provocatively and claim to be a food influencer, would run up huge bills, and then post them on Instagram as if they were sponsored and then run. So I don't think she was trying to be famous for running. I think she was just trying to pull off a scam. This story has nothing to do with anything other than like this reflection on the society we live in. Similarly, in my wacky stories of the day, this one's an interesting one to me. There's a Methodist pastor in New York who is 51, and he revealed last week that he is transitioning into a woman, and he identifies as asexual. That's two interesting things there. One is the transitioning to a woman. The other is the asexual. Like, something confusing in that to me. Like, because again, you might feel like you're a woman, but why would you then identify as asexual? It seems like there's something not clicking right in general. It's like, I remember doing a show on Fox, and it was about these conversion things for gay people where they try to convince them they weren't gay. And I had a guy on, and I was like, and he was married to a woman, and there was no chemistry between them. And she was not very attractive, and he was not very attracted to her, but you could tell because he was really still, but he was pretending not to be. So he essentially had an asexual attraction to a woman. And I wonder about that. But anyway, not judging what's going on for this guy, but he's a North Chile Methodist Church in Rochester. And he put on a rainbow stole and said, "I to announce with joy that I'm transitioning. I'm affirming to all of you that I'm transgender. I'm not becoming a woman. I'm giving up pretending to be a man." So interesting. I'm not becoming a woman. I'm giving up pretending to be a man. So confusing times. And again, I am not judging whether this guy, he's changing his name to Philippa, and preferred pronouns she and her. I don't know. I just don't know. I'm not judging. I just don't know. I don't know what it's like to feel you're not your gender. I do know you can't pretend you're not your sex. I'm not going to go there. There are men, there are women. You're a biological male or biological female. That's a given. Not going to play in that game. But you might genuinely not identify with your gender and the sex you are, and that's a legit thing. I'm not going to say some people say it's a mental health issue. It's a mental health challenge for sure. You're trapped in something, and it's got to be incredibly confusing, and I'm sure incredibly empowering to like step into the identity you feel more comfortable with. Again, I have zero judgment about it. People should live in the identity they feel most comfortable with. We should not be encouraging kids to question it, to let them find it on their own. And we absolutely need to recognize there are two sexes. That's it. What gender you're in. But I thought it was interesting, just then, it's and the church supports him, but he made a point of saying his do not, and they asked him to tell him that they don't support him. They asked me to tell this. This is wacky times we're in. So everything's like up there. And by the way, digital identities are going to allow you to be all kinds of things, and we will be multiple identities. Maybe not you and I, but subsequent generations will experience identity in a very different way than we do. And our core human identity will become an interesting thing. What's at the root of your multiple, let's call them digital identities, but they'll seem as real as any other identity you could have. Best way I can put it. Then finally, this one I found interesting. Let me find it because I just moved it. This one, the Oxford Debate Society. You remember when Charlie Kirk went to Oxford and he did a debate with the leader of the Oxford Debate Society, who's again very liberal. And he came out came out in a different way this past week and apologized to Charlie Kirk's family for celebrating his death. And I always say when people make apologies, it's like it's not who I am. I don't mean it. I always hate it. It's like you get caught in the crossfire. You're embarrassed. You want to save your job, your reputation, your 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 handlers tell you, the PR specialist, you got to say this, take it back, say it's not you, say you never meant it. He didn't do that. But after the assassination, he was at Utah Valley University and Aberone, and he was the past president-elect of the Oxford Union, which is, led the debate society. Kirk came and debated with it. And he wrote in a WhatsApp group, Charlie Kirk got shot, let's fucking go. Okay. Not good. I'm not happy with any of those comments. He was removed from his position in October. So now you do have a motive for him to change what he did, but he got removed from his position. But he came out and he gave a more honest assessment. He said, I had very little context for what I was reacting to, but I wanted to start a conversation. I missed the mark, and that's why I deleted and retracted my comments. And he said this comments were made before the video of the shooting. As soon as I saw how serious it was, I went on Instagram to apologize. Now, I wanted to start a conversation. Not a big fan of that argument. I said, hey, Charlie Kirk's dead. Let's fucking go. I wanted to start a conversation. Again, times we live in. Honest, he was probably happy and then realized how fucked up that is when he saw the video and realized, what am I doing? What am I celebrating? He probably had a moment to think with his super intelligent mind to go, why am I celebrating this? A man who came even to me and had debate and conversation. I don't agree with him. Why am I celebrating his death? But he did say, I want to offer my apologies and my condolences to the family. No one deserves to lose a husband. No child deserves to grow up without a father. I hope that they're able in some capacity to move on from what was a tragic event. And to that end, I am very sorry. I'll give him credit. That's a good, honest apology. Nobody deserved this to happen, and I should have been so, brusque about it. Again, times we live in. We need people to be. We need apologies. We need common ground. We need to find our way through where we are, because, well, I mean, those three stories are loosely connected. The influencer who literally dines and dashes and pretends she's a food influencer, gets arrested 10 times and keeps posting on Instagram, and finally is $60,000 in debt to her apartment. It's like this superficial sham under covering something so not real, which is so many influencers. There's some desperate thing inside there, so not real. To the man who doesn't feel like he's who he is, he's like, I'm not becoming a woman. I'm giving up pretending to be a man. Oof. To a guy realizing I'm mocking the death of somebody, I debated a figure I don't agree with, but I'm like encouraging it. Like, now let's go. Like, good. What? Why what part of you would celebrate that? Times we live in, society we're in, reflected by our leadership. But I will say this: people always say about our leaders, whether it's Trump or Gavin Newsom, who LA Bear is like, he's not fit for being president, our political tribes, whatever. We're getting the leadership that reflects us, not the other way around. Our leaders in both sides of the political aisle reflect us. We don't reflect them. They reflect us, all of us. So you can't be like, well, Donald Trump is not me. Yes, he is a version of you. I don't care how far left you are. In fact, the farther left you are, the more woke you are, the more Trump derangement syndrome you have, the more pro-Palestinian Hamas from the river to but we're not anti-Jew. The more, the leftists like Ali, I started out, the other show with, who, big white people suck. You are Donald Trump in your own way. He's a reflection of all that. He's a reflection of us, whether you're conservative or liberal. He's a reflection of the society we are. Don't forget that. All right, this wasn't a funny recap like David or Hotep would do, but you know what? I'm not a funny guy. But have a good one. See you on Rob Nelson Live on Friday.
Valuable company in the world right now is NVIDIA.
China gonna have to bow down, man. China is going to have to bow down.